There's been a lot of focus on not lost on me. 2007 was presented to bring in the House which the legislature has been able to act on, up with incredible plans of their own. This until last session. Yeah. So we consolidated for develop some ability, more resources paid to better for our kids. And adult which is now 73. It's important to remember that 73 was a compromise from our original, which we negotiated in good faith. So, despite our objective, continue with flow, delay, and derail. But we wanted to keep the process forward. So we were lucky with the understanding that the session follow through at 73, the bill. Unfortunately, it appears our value so far the House difficult decision, as well as the work we did just 10 months ago. We've heard many people just will we can't get the vote. My perspective, this is something we can accept. Over the years, I've been this bill when they really something to move forward. Because the fact is, Vermonters are demanding something to address cost of living, cost of education. And I'm sure this would agree. Don't want to but without changes to our structure, we're left with no choice. The cost part of the equation. Because while we rein in spending, we also have to right size our system, our money to put a good use. It's back kids and the teachers in the classroom rather than being over. Now, all the work is done. It's not all due to the opportunity to this session. Rather than voters sent us here to make because we can't kick the can down the road any further. Oh, House will bring a bill to the floor. The moment sense of urgency. Yeah. With that.
Governor. Today, I want to talk directly to parents, students, community members, and our educators who care deeply, work hard today for our students. You know more than anyone that the state of Vermont needs to do a better job of supporting public schools across our state. You know more than anyone the challenges facing our public schools. You know that these challenges are rooted in a system that is not fair to schools, not fair to educators, and is not fair to students. Vermont might spend more than every other state in the country, but you wouldn't know it when visiting certain districts. Our highest spending districts spend nearly twice as much as our lowest spending districts, who often serve more rural and economically disadvantaged communities. A few weeks ago, I heard from a superintendent in one of those communities. The district proposed a budget with one of the lowest rates of per pupil funding, one that eliminated positions, but even that wasn't enough to earn the support of the community or keep taxes stable because of budget decisions outside of their control made in other communities across the state. Disparities in funding lead directly to disparities in opportunity, and just as importantly, disparities in expectations. Right now, what it takes for diploma is largely determined at the local level. That has led to rigor, patience, ultimately, and even opportunities for students across our state. I was recently in a conversation with UVM leadership. They shared a story that really stuck with me. A valedictorian from a economically disadvantaged community earned the Green and Gold Scholarship. But despite that student's hard work and talent, they didn't have prerequisites to enroll. Think about what that means. Students did everything we asked of them. The system still closed doors. We hear similar stories from our career and technical education centers. Students arrive from different high schools with very different levels of preparation, which means some students miss out on opportunity. Not because of their ability, but because their foundation wasn't the same. And all of this reflects something deeper. The funding, opportunities, and expectations, how we set a signal. They reflect what we believe students are capable. When those are lower in certain communities, they're sending a message, whether we intend to or not, that we expect less of students. That is inequity. Let me be clear. Secretary of Education, I object. I believe every student in Vermont, and it's our responsibility as a state to build a system that gives every student the opportunity, the preparation, and the support to meet their full potential. Last June, we made a promise to equalize funding opportunities, expectations for students across the Vermont. We made that promise in the form of Act 73. Yes, part of the goal is to bend the cost curve. But more importantly, this is about improving the experience outcomes for every student in Vermont. This is about addressing the disparities, making sure every child has access to the same level of opportunity. The way we invest taxpayer dollars reflects who we are as a state. And Act 73 is grounded in a simple belief. Every student matters, no matter where they come. That begins foundation formula that funds students based on their needs, not their zip code. It is a more equitable approach for students, more predictable for policymakers, and more sustainable for taxpayers. And it represents one of the most significant investments in public education anywhere in the country. Just imagine what that makes possible. Imagine what we can do when that level of investment is paired with a system designed to truly support students, teachers, consistently and at scale. But here's the reality. Investment alone is not enough. Right now, too much of our system is weighed down by complexity, bureaucracy, and fragmentation. Our resources are spread thin, diluted across too many structures, and too often disconnected from where they matter most, students and classrooms. If we don't address that, if we continue to layer new investments on top of a really complex system, we risk diminishing the very impact we're trying to achieve. And that's how opportunity gets lost. So this is the moment. We have the investment. We have the framework. Now we have to align how we organize and deliver education so that those resources actually reach students and support educators in a meaningful way. Because if we get this right, the potential is enormous. But if we don't, if we allow complexity, bureaucracy to stand in the way, we will fall short of what Vermont students deserve. What do we mean to say getting the scale structure? Why is the foundation formula tied to larger districts? Well, we could have compromised on quality, designed a system with lower expectation and fewer opportunities for students to learn. We could have compromised on funding and designed a more expensive system to maintain smaller districts at taxpayers' expense. Instead, Act 73 established a process to enact new larger districts, not just to save money, but to bring communities together, build the comprehensive regional high schools of the future, and build the best education system in America for every child in our state. If we maintain our current system, or worse yet, add another layer of administration, off bureaucracy on top, then smaller districts, many of which have 500 fewer students, will be at a disadvantage under the new funding system. They will face all the same education quality requirements as their larger counterparts, but students will not get the benefit of the expanded programs and opportunities. The House Education, the Senate Education Committee, Democrats, Republicans, Districting Task Force, the Commission on the Future of Public Education, all agree on the need for larger districts in order to deliver on the tree. The only thing we disagree on is how hard we're willing to work to deliver on that promise and how many difficult choices we will make. Achieving scale to larger districts isn't controversial because it won't work. It's controversial because it's hard work. The proposal that passed the House Education Committee last week takes the easy way out. It shifts the hard decisions to the local level, puts the burden on local communities to fix the problems that Vermonters have asked our state leaders to fix by establishing an elaborate, optional, 4-year, 10-step merger process with perpetual offers. The plan asks local communities to fend for themselves. Again. So how do we get back on track to deliver on the promise, equalize funding, opportunities, and expectations for students? We start by being honest about the challenges, not avoiding them. We must talk openly about local control. What should it mean for communities to be truly engaged in their schools? Fair and sustainable teacher pay. Fair and sustainable teacher pay means making sure educators in rural and disadvantaged communities are paid on par with their peers in more affluent parts of the state. Our funding formula should support raising teacher salaries where they are currently paid. The role of small schools in our communities. Let's be clear that no one is talking about students being on a bus for 2 hours more. In fact, Act 73 puts guardrails in place to support schools that are small by necessity in small rural parts of Vermont. We also need to talk about school choice and how it fits into a fair system. School choice is not an excuse to avoid progress. It is a manageable issue, and with the right structure, practical conversations focused on practical solutions, we can preserve choice and still deliver a fair, high-quality system for all Vermont students. And yes, facilities and construction, but in the right order. Before we make a significant investment in our buildings, we need to understand this is just a responsible use of taxpayer dollars. And we must clear up misconceptions about districts because they're not about taking something away. They are about making sure every student has access to the same level of opportunity, making sure the investments that we make result in the outcomes we expect. So to conclude, we know what the problems are. We've known them for years. And at this point, the issue is understanding them. It's whether we're willing to act. Because let's be honest, we're not lacking ideas, you're not lacking data, we're not lacking options. We already have viable paths forward, several. What we are at risk of doing right now is wasting time, spending more time studying what we already know, revisiting debates we've already had, and removing proposals that take us backward instead of forward. We don't have time for that. Every year we delay equity seat. Students miss opportunity they don't get back. Educators are asked to carry more of the burden of a system that isn't working. As state leaders, we cannot accept this. As parents and community members, we cannot accept this. As school leaders, educators, we cannot accept this. So this is the moment to focus, to take the strongest options in front of us, find them, strengthen them, and move forward with purpose. Not to lose them, not to delay, not to replace them with something we already know falls short. Vermonters expect us to get this right, and getting it right means making the hard decisions at the state level so we can finally build a system that's fair, consistent, and worthy of our students. The governor and the Agency of Education will continue to offer our partnership to make viable proposals better. We are listening, we are ready, we want to make this work. Let's take our roles as state leaders seriously, get back on track, back to work. And then let our educators do what they do best. Teach, support, inspire. That's the work, and it's time.
Good afternoon. I'm Anderson, Commissioner of Financial. Why am I here? Talk about education. We'll talk about governance. Served, chaired the school board for 6 years, and also had the honor of serving government first. Chaired with the school board at a small school district. Experience issue finance guidance at the state level. Food system. We have statewide, but we have local. Those two things. We disagree. The tax department. Tax agency. Spending. State. From a system that's meant to be. People make decisions at the local level, as I did from the school board, are not operating with a system that's clear, predictable. They may reduce their budget, even if for people spending, they go out. Next door, another district may offer lower tax. This is fundamentally unfair. Unfair to students, unfair to taxpayers. It's unfair to school workers, teachers. It's unfair to us as Vermonters. There are parent volunteers on boards forced to make impossible decisions about the schools that they're in, and asking a class group or teacher that is taught. They're asked to solve statewide issues at a local. And you can flip that around. The legislature, folks in Montpelier are trying to solve local education spending at the statewide. But we have this split governance and finance. So we have to, we try to make this work. And we'll around the edges. And we can go through them all, but we don't have all. As part of some of them around for healthcare, as tax commissioner, voluntary merger proposals, we've seen strongly written proposals, we've seen changes to access spending thresholds, but look at where we are today. It's not transform the system. And what is this? Thank you, Secretary Saunders. Well, skyrocketing property taxes, declining quality metrics, some of the highest per people. So, statewide financing, local decisions, can we meet in the middle? I think I decided three in the middle. It recognizes the need for local influence, appropriate local control, but also financing system for all schools, regardless of the economic situation or even school that base foundation for. Continued tweaks will only sustain the failed model, make future decisions. Look at the trajectory we are on. It's easy to predict where we will be in 5 what the process will be. That's where the quality metrics of your students might be given recent trends. Where our average class. Yes, it's scary to adopt a major transformational change. It's scary to me, scary to me. Knowing future we fail to recognize the opportunity.
Thank you, Ty.
BOCES could save somewhere over $3 billion order that needed cost through the county. Why not?
Yeah, tried that fund, but I'd ask Secretary.
We've been consistent from the beginning that we can look at ways to have regional service. Our concern is building BOCES on top of our existing, because it's creating another layer on districts that struggle to sustain themselves. And so we have really put forward towards larger districts so that we can scale and we can look at after that where there are so many needs to have regional service delivery around those particular areas that are highly specialized, such as. But the concern is the layering on top of the existing system, and it still requires a significant amount of that should stand several as well. Still not shifts to the funding structure, which is a challenge to student classrooms too.
The House Democrats saw they brought in school board member, I think from OC, they said they're all facing savings, but they said that the administration down. It's just like one or two that it is not creating sort of. I mean, how do you rank that on OC? But just not what they're saying.
I would just want that they've come a long ways in some respect. Or just a couple of weeks ago, here, where's the safe consolidation? It's just not. It's not making sense. Well, now we see the benefit. So, I guess we're over that. Consolidation does. Seems to be agreeable. So I'm going to think this is a positive step forward. We need to do this on our scale. They did it. Many of them. Single numbers of students. We'd like to catch it before it gets to them. So not just closing schools because of necessity, but combining help students and finding more education. See.
I also want to acknowledge the work that superintendents part of our state. Within our current system, they recognize the need to share service. So, but we still recognize that the system is overly complex for the number of students. And while we need to benefit, we can achieve by districts so that we are reducing a lot of the administrative overhead, duplication, funding, position, so that those investments can be realigned on the things that matter most to high quality teaching. So within the construct, while the folks in special education delivery not bringing up any dollars to really increase or bring up dollars to offer a wider array of programming for students beyond the living service. So we think about the funding, and we know, and every area will enumerate those challenges. It simply is difficult to get your dollars to go further. The expectations that we put forward, and we see larger districts across that they're able to resources to provide support for their students. We want to build on that so that those benefits are.
Governor, the other part of this bill is the creation of STEM. Those Vermont cities.
I think study for something. It's time to do something about it.
And, you know, just generally, I mean, based on this, there are some ways to go. But in terms of the outlook, especially this one, that in the football,
It's not acceptable. Way to see what the Senate does with it. It's got to be about ways and means. Find the body, Senate figure it out. So hopefully, working together, solve this. I still, over 20 years, it's amazing work that working together. So,
Governor, also, though, with some of these big multi-year reforms, sometimes there is this question. One thing that said we need to find why not the rank and file members who are here to or framework presented. Why not?
what course would you like? Oh, studies. Doing kicking the can down the road, having a bigger date, 5 years from now. Solve the study. But yeah, this is a courage. Right. That's what did say
I hear but you're concerned both school one day or those are solid. What does that mean for the hand box, the objects?
party. You students. Books. And then there are hopes. Keep it over. With hopes. And that was not being realistic. Again, if we truly want to bring more people into the state, truly want to have kids in schools, truly want to have fun, we have to make it more affordable. And property taxes, huge drive in terms of people, whether they can live in the state, move to a different state, or even come. So we need to do all this. But again, if we don't solve this problem, it's going to be Commissioner Taxes might have an idea of what it's going to cost next year if we do that. Yeah, doing nothing, I don't think it's an option. He sat down this morning, this article was written yesterday, I said, we can wait till next year. So, the reality of it is, we do not 75, close to $200 million increases in taxes at the property tax level this year, which is 7 to 10%. So the problem's not, and at the local or town of West. Crying. Oh no. So why she was so upset? She said the only option I have to try and control my household. And so you're listening to people really around it. Young families, senior citizens who want to age gracefully in place in Vermont. So
First, the phone out on David, on Vermont.
Here, lawmakers, they just came with the votes. This act, by fair margin. There's a reason why that's.
well, there's a lot of outside the horses and in my remarks, giving more time to draw maps. I think the state look back on that, we allowed that to move forward. We said that they could have this committee to work on it during the summer and produce maps so we could vote on it early in the session. That just provided more time for those who proposed to it, at the beginning, and validated our concerns and resulted, so to speak. So we still, solving something. Or it could be. Past. But. Backwards, but look forwards. Seeing where we can do, if leadership wants to do something. It's going to take a lot of all years just to make this more acceptable. But we need that. Foundation put into place. So solve those three problems and tell us how you want to do it in a short period of time.
$690 per pupil higher. 2030 than under the law. That's how that got continues to grow. Is that consistent with what you agreed to, or?
I mean, I think we all agree when we pretty last year on what the so it is consistent. Yeah. Challenges. Versions. So we'll see what passes.
You were for President Trump proposed that cutting the USDA budget by 20% out of it, 20% out of it. Vision does support that, and what the impact would be on.
Thank you, Governor. Thank you for the question. Yeah, we're monitoring what's coming out of Washington. Mind always the budget, and it looks much different. Response to that. There are some concerns, of course, with that budget. You know, we don't have the details of what it would mean to Vermont, but keep our eye on that. People that congressional delegation reports, particularly on the annual budget committee percent about within the budget process goes to Washington.
All right, Boston Road.
I don't have a question at the moment, thank you.
Keep with them, right, right?
Other than that, thank you.
Guy Page, Vermont.
You're on mute.
You're still on mute. And Barber, Newport Daily Express.
Governor, Governor, back on Act 73, are there other rural states that are Vermont that have undergone a massive consolidation? Is there, that shows what the financial benefits are for having that consolidation?
Secretary Sam.
So there are other models we can look at, and I think it's also important to reflect on our own work. For decades, we have been approaching this, recognizing that to achieve scale, higher quality education system, and to make our funding work. I think there are important lessons from Act 46 that we're applying within this context. Voluntary mergers are a really challenging process to negotiate. It's a lot of time. Also, with in that law, there were not as clear guardrails, education quality objectives, and also the fundamental guardrails to ensure that those mergers actually resulted in the intended outcome. I think what we've seen in Vermont over the last several decades is attempts to approach this in different. So Act 46 only focused on governance, 60 only focused on funding. We have a number of quality initiatives like agriculture and others. What we're recognizing is it's unworkable to implement those initiatives unless you really. So what we learned from the work we've done here in Vermont, education, those lessons. That's why we started the process by clearly articulating the goals. What do we want to achieve through this transformation, and holding ourselves accountable for achieving those goals by making sure that the funding actually delivers on those goals. So throughout this process, we've done the work, we've developed the budget, we have been able to prove what is possible with this significant investment in terms of expanding access to protection, expanding access to career education, increasing teacher salary, ensuring that our district schools have access to specialists, reading, prevention. We have modeled all of the work we've done. We need to hold true, moving forward in a way that's really explicit around the goals as the appropriate guidelines and guardrails. And like in all good government, we need to evaluate along the way. As part of what is built into this transition, like other states, you would be in a process on a regular basis every 5 years of evaluating if our funding and our structural decisions are in fact delivering on our objectives. And if we're precise enough in what those objectives are, those studies will help us to refine course in a very specific and precise way, because we'll be really clear about what we're trying to achieve and what specific area we fall short, so that our decisions can be more precise and focused in making adjustments to deliver on the promise or continue to sustain our work.
But it doesn't address my question. Is there others that only interest of models Vermont? They undergo a consolidation process, and that's with the model of Vermont.
So we've looked at, as part of our analysis, we have reviewed education reform efforts across the country with particular emphasis on those states that are rural in identifying how they have done some of the consolidated mergers, such as in the state of Maine. We've also been hearing from other states that have opted for a CISA model. They're looking at Vermont because they're seeing that that's not actually working out as intended. They're looking to understand how they would move forward, really thinking about larger districts. So we're in constant conversation with other states across the country. You as a country are grappling with very similar issues, declining enrollment, students, challenges with workforce. Everyone is looking for the solutions that are going to best serve their. We've been really consistent around documenting our analysis, our environmental, and what states have done to learn. We've also been, we can't take a model from another state and just plop it on top of the pump. We have to be really clear about customizing those solutions in a way that fit our context will achieve our goals. So while, yes, we have looked at other examples, I do think history of our work in this area is really right to learn from so that we can build on the things that work, but also be clear around the ways that we did work, so that we don't repeat those.
Very good, thank you very much.
Secretary Saunders, I'm sure.
Back to that page.
Yes, thanks for. One question for you. House Republicans just call for repeal, tier 3 rural implementation. That was repealed. Will you be inclined to veto? And if not, why not?
Again. One, removing the road rule, one, extending some deadlines, so forth, was another. So we have certain issues. We'll have to see where with the Senate Republicans on this, but we'll see where it goes. At this point, it's just do something to move forward. We have here's this. So yeah.
On it, has there been any certain thought been given to reducing expenses on the classroom level, as well as the administrative and supervisory level? Certain programs, maybe mandated programs or just sort of accepted programs that maybe we don't use much.
I think it all goes in the same. Secretary Saunders answer that.
So we've really thought about evaluating the education quality standards for goals that we've already identified in law. That many of those expectations are not being put into practice in districts right now due to challenges with implementation, due to challenges with being an unfunded mandate. So what we started with this process was outlining very specifically what we wanted to achieve in the system and defining what school quality looks like, defining school success, and making sure that the funding will actually support that. And so all of the work around identifying those high leverage programs, high leverage investments, it was embedded in our work that we did for formula, and is why in Act 73 it's very clear language around what we're trying to achieve. So part of our work is making sure that we can hold through the expectations we set forth for districts, and in doing that, understanding that we have to fund those priorities because we know our budgets are an expression of our priorities. And I think part of your point is we have created a situation where there are a lot of funded mandates and the districts are not delivering. So if it's really core to what's important to advancing educational opportunities, that's something we need to make sure that we're investing and funding in a consistent and equitable way. Not sure if there's a specific question you have from the specific program, line, or how we evaluate it.
Yes, I just wonder if you identified some programs where you said it's a relatively speaking bells and whistles compared to core stuff that we don't need funds.
So one thing I'll mention is that it's very expensive for districts to provide evidence-based teaching and professional learning, to provide high-quality instructional material and curricula. So we've been doing a lot of work at the agency to evaluate that and make recommendations on those high-quality instructional materials that have the biggest impact in our space. And we'll be rolling out some of those recommendations as early as next month. We've been working really closely with our curriculum directors across the state to evaluate that and to make sure that we're providing that level of recommendation on those training resources, materials that are going to be most effective, and then learning from it. So actually collecting and understanding how districts are implementing these various resources to learn from that process. So in addition to making these recommendations, we're strengthening our approaches to support school planning, both at a school level, district and regional level, to really learn and evaluate the successes that we have across the state so that we can scale those effective practices and share it district, statewide.
I just wanted to mention as well, thinking about this, the one you want, expanding how to relate, there, should also should be
For eliminating tier 3 and rural.
All of them.
Hi, Governor. The second Democratic challenger, Ally Richards, entered the race for governor this week. For kids, I'm wondering what you think of her candidacy and what
well, again, I think others, it's not in position to lead. It's great to see Danny up and running around. Yeah, I think it's, but I think it's just important, as we've seen that going through that, seeing all the states, select board, school board, representation should step up as well. It's always something to do. So, legislative races, constitutional offices of the local races, just encourage people to run.
Both Amanda Canoe and Alan Richards said the legislature, the brakes on force consolidation, like that's out. I mean, one way or the other, there's, given how the legislature not coming on this, you expect the police.
To free this one. Sorry, that. Governor, how do you give some sort of events that pretty much. Just to get and just to be really clear on this. If it were to come to your desk right now, would be which each 9 and 5 yes.
Governor, forensic. Bridge. Justice. I don't even order this for
So,
what's actually. This is in.
I think it's looking good, better. So we're hopeful.
Just to speak to the importance of establishing this in Vermont, I know we talked about such a household. What your
But again, for decades, some sort of transit facility. Because if somebody is in be able to set guilty of respects. Set correctional facility, it needs to be something. Because then they're released into society. Society. Facility. All right, thank you all very much.